Hi, my name is Max Haddad, and I am going to tell you about how I robbed a pharmacy and went to prison. So this is something different than I would normally do. I've got a gaming channel. This is not me self-promoting. This is me saying that vulnerability in front of a camera posted to the entire internet is not really my MO. Typically, I'm hiding behind digital shapes doing fantastic things at the behest of my controller. So I'm a drug addict. I'm in recovery now. If I wasn't, I'd be a very well put together heroin addict. But from the age of 14 until really 27, when I got arrested, I struggled seriously with drug addiction. I started smoking pot when I was 13. I started drinking when I was 13. And as soon as I started, I did it as often as I could do it. As often as I could do it. And I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at my inability to speak without stuttering. Which meant I was, getting alcohol out of my parents' liquor cabinet every night. I was putting water in the bottles so they wouldn't notice, even though I don't think they would have because they really didn't drink. And fast forward to when I was 27, I had gone in and out of rehabs, AA. I would get sober for like 6 months and I would relapse. And so I had actually been sober, I think, for about 8 months. And I guess out of nowhere, the thought occurred to me to rob a pharmacy. Up to this point, when I was broke and I needed money for drugs, and I was doing heroin and cocaine when I was using, like I said, I was sober, I would typically take money from my parents, which is a really pathetic thing to do. It's one of my biggest regrets, stealing from my parents. They're not rich, they're not poor, but it doesn't really matter. They work hard for their money, and every dollar broke their heart just a little bit more, whether they admit it or not. So I think some combination of shame, not being able to handle the shame of taking more money from my parents, and the idea of this gold mine of drugs that was just sitting behind a counter, struck me. And there were all these videos. There are all these videos on the internet from news reports of people that had just brought notes into pharmacies. Notes saying, "You're being robbed. Here's what I want. Don't call the cops, please." And I realized that I could basically do this without a gun. I didn't want to point a gun at anybody. I didn't have a gun. I didn't have experience with armed robbery. I'm not really a violent person. I'm happy to defend myself, but the idea of threatening, in a real way, threatening some stranger, some innocent stranger behind a counter who just happens to be in between me and what I wanted, didn't sound appealing. I think I also had some idea that having a weapon made things worse, so it was better to just pretend you had one, or not have one, which I didn't. So I spent, I think, about 3 days trying to figure out, did I want to break into a CVS after hours? Did I want to fucking crash my car through the wall and hope it landed behind the pharmacy and grab the safe and leave with it? Did I want to bring in power tools, of which I didn't have much experience with either, and crawl under the motion detectors and try to break into the safe? And so I spent some time researching that, and then I basically threw my hands in the air and decided that wasn't going to happen. It was way scarier to do that than to just walk in on off-peak hours and hand him a note saying, "You're being robbed. Here's what I want. Don't call the cops, please." So I started doing research, figuring out which pharmacy was the best. Pharmacies nowadays have their time delay saves, meaning that when you are filling a prescription for a controlled substance, namely an opiate, the pharmacist enters a password, open sesame, enters a number, and then there's like a 3-minute counter until the thing opens and they get the drugs out and they fill your prescription. So the reason being, it's pretty obvious, I think, but the reason being is if something's awry, namely somebody's shown up to try to rob you, there's a delay, which is a deterrent, because the more time you're in the pharmacy robbing them, the better the chances that the cops are going to show up and arrest you for said robbery. So I started driving around looking for pharmacies that didn't have a sign on the front that said time delay safe in use, because they'll let you know up front. It's like when stores will have let you know that video cameras are being used. They'll let you know that a time delay safe is being used as another deterrent, because they don't want you to come in and try to rob them and get arrested. They don't want that to even start. Yeah, it's better that you be arrested, but it's even better if you don't try at all. So I started driving around looking for pharmacies that didn't have the time delay safe sign up. And I ended up in a little city about 20 minutes from where I lived at the time. This is probably the 6th or 7th pharmacy I'd looked at, and they didn't have the sign up. So I went home. I put the address of the pharmacy into Google Earth. I started looking at the roads around the pharmacy to see where I was going to park, how I was going to get away from this pharmacy, what was the quickest way to get into a populated area where I could just blend in after the robbery. And there was basically only one road in and out of this city, and it passed a police station, so that's super fun. I decided that I would park away near the pharmacy, but away so that because they had cameras in the parking lot, but park far enough away so that they would never see me driving my car. And I would walk up to the pharmacy, so it would look like some dude just walked up to the pharmacy, went in, robbed it, and I would make my way to my car, change my clothes, throw those clothes in the trunk, and get in the car and drive away. So they'd be looking for somebody on foot, right? Nobody would have seen somebody getting into a car. The cops would be driving around the city looking for somebody hiding in the bushes or something like that. So I, again, 8 months sober, if this tells you anything about how crazy somebody can get when they want drugs. I wasn't experiencing physical cravings. It had been long enough of me being sober that there were no drugs in my system. Drugs weren't leaving my system. I didn't need the drugs, but it felt like I did. I was so crazy, such a dry drunk, somebody that's been away from drugs and alcohol, but like white knuckling it for so long without doing the things that are necessary to stay happy and sober, that I had gone nuts, basically, and convinced myself this was a good idea. So I laid in bed pretending like I wasn't going to do it, that this was just some whim that I had to see if I could do it, if I could figure it out. I laid in bed, and I had done research, checking the Google Analytics or whatever it was to see what are their busiest hours, when do they change shifts, things like that. And it was about, I think, 7:30 p.m. when they would have been the slowest, so that there was the smallest chance that other people would be waiting at pharmacy for their prescription fills. And again, laying in bed pretending like I'm not going to do it. And 7:30 hit, 8 o'clock hit, whatever it was. And I stood up real quick, realized I was doing it, wrote down on the piece of paper, here's what I want. I wrote down OxyContin, Xanax, Klonopin, Percocet, I think that was it, maybe Vicodin, and drove to the pharmacy. It was a 6-minute drive, 7-minute drive, something like that. Drove to the pharmacy, had a hat on, And this is weird. I actually shaved before I went to the pharmacy. I've always had a beard. I shaved before I went, and the off chance that somebody would recognize me with the beard. Not that I'm thinking about doing it again or that I would ever do it. I would never recommend this to anybody, but in hindsight, should have shaved afterwards. No matter. Had the hat on, had the black hoodie, pulled it over my head. And I went into the pharmacy. I waited in line. There was only one person, I believe, ahead of me. I get up to the pharmacy tech who's behind the counter. She says, "Hi, how can I help you?" And I hand her this note. Oh, it also said, cops equals you die. So I had made a death threat. So I add that onto the number of charges I was about to get placed over my head. And she read the note and she looked at me, and you could tell she was like a deer in the headlights. She was pretty scared. And she hands the note to the pharmacist, who goes immediately to the safe, enters the number, and comes over to the counter and stands in front of me doing busy work. And honestly impressive. Honestly impressive. The pharmacy tech immediately went back to the counter and started helping other customers, acting like nothing was going on. Super impressive composure from the pharmacist and all the techs. All of them. There was no panic except for that first spark when I handed her the note. That's it. They made sure that this was going to go off without a hitch. Fuck the medicine. The shit's insured. Let's get this dude out of here. Keep the customer safe. And that's what they did. I had my hand in my hoodie pocket like I had a gun. And after about probably a minute, I said, "What's taking so long?" He said, it'll be a couple more minutes. And after, I guess, a couple more minutes, he starts, oh, well, first he tried to make a deal. I guess he had like a bottle of some Klonopin out already. And he said, "Well, we've got these." And I said, "Opiates." And that's all I said. I just said opiates. And I stared at him. And I don't know if I'm an intimidating person or not. I really don't. I think, a pretty nice guy, but definitely in this moment, I was trying to present myself as somebody that you didn't want to screw with. So I said, "Opiates." He didn't say anything. We wait. The safe opens. He gets what I asked for. And so he puts a bottle of like 2,000 Percocet 20s, right, on the counter. A bottle of about 1,000 OxyContin 40s, a bottle of like 1,500 Xanax 1s, and some Klonopin, I can't remember, like 500 Klonopin. I don't remember what dose, like half a milligram or something. And he hands them to me, and I said, "Put them in a bag." And so he puts them in a bag, hands them to me. I grab them. And I don't run. I walk very quickly out the front door. This is all I had in my head. I was just saying to myself, "Get home, get home, get home, get home, get home." So I walk as soon as I'm out of the pharmacy. Then I sprint past this tree line where I was parked. And nobody would be able to see me getting into a car. It was like around this corner. Around this corner. So even if you were watching where I was going to, you wouldn't be able to see what I ended up at. I ended up at my car, took off the hoodie, took off the track pants. I had like jeans under them or something like that. Put on a different shirt real quick, sprayed myself with cologne for some reason, thinking like if I got pulled over, nobody at the pharmacy would have smelled my cologne. Maybe they'd think I was going somewhere else. Like, why would somebody spray themselves? Like, why would this person smell like cologne? And, you know, like, I was just trying to make myself as quickly as possible not look like somebody who had just robbed a pharmacy, basically. So hat, hoodie, track pants, whoosh, threw them actually in the passenger seat because I realized that I was going to throw them away. As soon as it was a safe thing to do, I was going to throw them out of the car. Because why get pulled over with the stuff in your car that you had been wearing at the pharmacy? All they had to do was check the tapes. I start the drive home. I'm repeating to myself in my head, just get home, get home, get home. Sitting beside me in the passenger seat are all those pills, which totaled at about $40,000 street value. And that was just $1 per milligram. I'm sure you could have sold them for more. That was not even why I did it, though. You know, the cops eventually tried to pin on me that I wanted to sell them. And this was 100%. Every single one of those thousands of pills was for me to get high. That's it. It was all about me. I had never even tried to sell any of them. It's just not my thing. I've not really ever been a drug dealer. Sure, I've traded or something in the past, but that's not why I did it. I wanted to get high. I was desperate to feel differently than I felt. I was sick of being in my own skin. Get home, get home, get home, get home. I got home. I lived with my parents at the time, cool guy like I am, and I ran upstairs, put all the pills on my bed, dumped a lot of them out, and it was like a drug addict's paradise. It was honestly amazing to see that many magic pills that could take me to a different place where I could be a different person laid out on my bed. Was like a dream come true to somebody whose dream is to slowly kill themselves. So I immediately took a Klonopin because I was shaking. The adrenaline was fucking unbelievable. Unbelievable how weak and shaky I felt because I was so amped up and then, you know, safe, even though I was still peeking out my blinds to see where the cops immediately going to find out who did it. Oh, and by the way, after I left the pharmacy, like within 10 seconds, there were tons of sirens, cops racing past my car to get to this pharmacy. Because as soon as I had left, they had clearly called the police. I don't know what the situation was like at the pharmacy after I left. All I know is that I have an immense amount of respect for the pharmacy and the pharmacy techs for how they handled it. Immense amount of respect. Really strong people. So I take a Klonopin. I take a couple oxys, and I'd been, like I said, sober for quite a while. My tolerance was 0, and 80 milligrams of Oxycontin for somebody who hasn't been taking opiates at all for a long time. It was a lot, and I basically was in a blackout, near blackout, for most of the next 6-7 days. I overdosed, I think 3 times in that week. And I've got pictures of me in these overdoses. Tried to kill myself later in that week. I've got a picture of me having gotten back from the doctor with, you know, like my wrist tied up because I cut my arm open real bad. And I can show you guys some of this stuff. I'm a little hesitant to post any of that on the internet, but I guess if I'm posting this, maybe I might as well just let me know if you want to see it. We can do a video about how bad this week was. We could do a video just about this week. Not this week, but that week. And so the third time I overdosed, that's something that maybe not everybody knows. There's like a scale of severity when it comes to opiate overdoses. They're not all fatal. Sometimes you just pass out and struggle to breathe, but then you wake back up. Especially, I think, 2 out of the 3 overdoses, they shot me with Narcan, which is the chemical naloxone, which basically flushes all the opiates out of your opiate receptors. So any overdose that you're in, you're like sent to the other end of the spectrum, which is hell. And you come skyrocketing back to consciousness miserably. But it's to save your life, so, you know, screw it. But the third overdose that week, my dad, my wonderful, lovely pops, it's not sarcasm, I mean it, I love this guy, trying to save my life, not having a clue what I was on, just knowing it was something that was killing me, but not knowing. He's 78 now, so this was a few years ago. He was 74, 75. Didn't know. Put the pills that he had found in my pocket, which was, I think, still in the pharmacy bottle. That was another mistake. Definitely don't keep evidence on you. Again, this is not to teach anybody anything. This is me talking to dumb past me about what an idiot I was. Oh, God. So he put the bottle in my pocket. I go to the hospital. Apparently the nurse at the hospital like said to my dad, hey, here's the pills he had on him. Do you want to take them home with you? And he's like, no, throw them away. And when you throw away medicine at a hospital, when they dispose of them, I think security watches, at least in this case they did, security watched to make sure that there's none of the medical staff are pilfering any of the drugs. And the security guard recognized that this was way, 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 way too many pills for one person to have. Nobody's prescribed, no doctor is prescribing 1,000 oxycodone 40s to somebody. And he, I think it was a he in the police report. It was a he made the connection that this small city's CVS had been robbed, and called their police department. And within a couple days, maybe less, the police showed up at my house. I was in the bathroom at the time talking to myself in the mirror, super high. You know, having gotten back from the 3rd overdose in that week, I'm immediately taking more drugs. And so I throw on some clothes real quick, come downstairs. They say, you need to come to the police department with us just to ask some questions. I go to the police department, immediately confess because, I mean, they had me. In hindsight, I wouldn't have done it how I did it, but I confessed. Should have talked to my lawyer first. It's all worked out for the best, for sure, but should have talked to my lawyer first. And so I get taken to jail after my confession. I hadn't gotten in legal trouble since I was 18 or maybe even younger. So they let me out on something called pretrial release, which is basically being bailed out for free. And you have to check in with this person weekly. I think it was weekly until you go to court. So I'm checking in with this person. I end up catching a hit and run charge. I didn't hit a person. I got drunk and I hit a flagpole. And caught a hit and run charge, so my pretrial release was violated. So I ended up going back to jail, having to be actually bailed out. Meanwhile, I had been charged with, and I thought I was going to be charged with possession, just possession. I didn't know that possession over a certain amount, maybe I did and I was blocking it, but possession over a certain amount was going to be a bigger charge, and I lied. I didn't mean to lie. I was just dumb. I knew I was going to be charged with robbery, but I didn't realize the severity of it. And I thought, oh, it's my first charge, blah, 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 no big deal. So I was charged with robbery, intimidation, multiple possession charges over a certain amount. I think intent to deal they tried to charge me with. They did. And so I thought it was going to be like 6 years maximum dropped to, 2 years of house arrest or something like that. Oh. And I go in for my first appointment where they tell me what I've been charged with, and they were trying to give me 37 years. So my world collapsed. I was in full-fledged panic mode 24/7. It became basically impossible to even stay sober for short spurts because I couldn't stand myself. I couldn't stand what my life had become. I couldn't stand the way that my parents' hearts had broken and the way they would look at me, how upset they were. Girlfriend at the time, she was doing the best she could to handle with it. She had a little kid. She couldn't hardly tolerate it. So everybody around me, as a result of my actions, were living in this hell that I had created. And, excuse me, lawyers pushing back court. The longer you wait, the better it'll be, whatever. And so I'm stuck in this purgatory. And so is everyone around me. And it got to the point where I just wanted it to be over with. I wanted it to be over with. Just charge me. Let's get this over with. So I ended up signing a plea. My lawyer, being the wheeler and dealer that he is, got the 37 years. Well, the robbery, which was like a level 3, had been bumped to a level 4, which is better for those of you that don't know. Well, the level 4 had been moved to a level 5 as a pharmacy robbery instead of just a robbery. So a non-violent robbery, which it was. I didn't hurt anybody. Not like that. So plead out to 1 year DOC, prison, 1 year work release, which is a place you go and you can go to work and that's it. And you are basically in jail. 1 year house arrest and 2 years probation. And if I fucked up at any point of that, any point of any of that wasn't prison, I was going back to prison for like 6 years. So at this point in my life, I've gotten through the prison. Obviously, I'm not recording this from prison. I've gotten through the work release. I've gotten through the house arrest, and I'm now on the probation phase of all of this. Been through a lot. My family's been through a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the prison systems, the good and the bad. And there's a lot of both, more bad than good. And I learned a lot about the human condition and what somebody can be forced to go through, the depths of strength that we don't pull from on a daily basis unless we absolutely have to. And I had to, and I'm sure my parents did too. And there's people in worse situations than I was in, that's for sure. So I'd love to tell you guys more about it. I think it'd probably just be good for me to talk about it, honestly, but I'd love to help if I can. So if you want to hear more about, my first day of prison, if you want to hear more about legal shit, what prison's life is like, just let me know. So, anyways, thanks for listening. Bye.